Breaking news now. There will be 3 cities in Bulgaria that participate in the Global Cities Agenda.Assasinous Putin. The Association for Free Russia is holding events today in Sofia, Varna, and Burgas with the theme, Putin is a Killer, in commemoration of the 3rd anniversary of the attempt to poison the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Navalny was poisoned with Novichok on August 20, 2020. 3 years later, his supporters launched a global event against the person responsible for the attempt, Russian President Vladimir Putin. After almost 2 years of Russia's full-scale criminal war against Ukraine, everyone on earth is convinced that Putin is a ruthless dictator. At his command, thousands upon thousands have perished. Yet, we are hearing more and more people calling for a deal to be reached with Putin and for compromises, the event's organizers wrote. The Vitosha Boulevard in Sofia, the Alyosha Monument in Burgas, and the entrance to the Sea Garden in Varna will all play host to the festivities. The kickoff time is 7 p.m. Here you can learn more about the gathering and the group hosting it. The parallels between the decline of American power in the Middle East and the humiliating decline of British power in the same region are eerie. After abandoning one ominous imperium, the countries of the region appear to be rejecting a second. Slowly but surely, authoritarian regimes and their leaders are claiming their autonomy and freedom of action while courting new allies. As a result, the world is becoming increasingly multipolar, with no single superpower holding sway. Royal families in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates use money, oil, and sports to promote a unified national identity at home and a display of imperial might abroad. Despite their strategic value, they refuse to accept the protectorate status granted to them by the United States and, before that, the United Kingdom. As in the violent final days of the British Mandate, in Israel, radical Jewish nationalists and religious extremists are at odds over how to shape the future of the state. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, heir to another fallen empire, plays Kiss Me Quick with the United States, NATO, the European Union, Russia, and China. Since taking office in 2021, U.S. President Joe Biden has avoided dealing with the ongoing crises in the West Bank, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Libya, and Sudan out of respect for the American people and out of preoccupation with China and Ukraine. His main campaign promise in the Middle East, to repair the nuclear deal with Iran that Donald Trump torpedoed, has not been fulfilled. Britain's status as the preeminent power in the region was irreparably damaged by the invasion of Egypt in 1956. Is a Suez-like turning point for an increasingly irrelevant America imminent? Biden's answer is no, which is not shocking given his lifelong belief in American preeminence but may be unwise given the current climate. Instead, he's made a late start on an ambitious plan to restore American dominance in the region. This is done in part to counteract Beijing's and Moscow's sway and in part to remind local allies who provides the financial backing for their security and prosperity. This month, Biden sent an additional 3,000 troops to the Gulf, ostensibly to deter Iran but also to demonstrate who is in charge. There are also political calculations to be made. Next year, Biden must run for re-election and is hoping for the impossible, a 3rd term in office. The prize is the diplomatic equivalent of a Triple Crown: a historic peace agreement between Saudi Arabia and Israel, progress toward Palestinian statehood, and a understanding between the United States and Iran. Let's start with Iran. This month, significant progress was made in negotiations in Qatar to free imprisoned Americans in exchange for the unfreezing of $6 billion in Iranian assets. Reportedly, the two parties are also debating whether or not to stop the sale of Iranian military drones to Russia. Iran's unpopular and economically beleaguered regime desperately wants U.S. sanctions lifted, and some have speculated that an informal bilateral deal to do so is the ultimate goal. Conversations are still going on. The Saudis, an old enemy of Iran's, are involved in the second, related part of this makeover in the Middle East. The United States is on edge because of Chinese mediation between Iran and Saudi Arabia's coordination with Russia. To normalize relations with Israel in the style of the Abraham Accords, Biden needs to win over Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia. In order to achieve this goal, despite obvious proliferation concerns, he is reportedly dangling a security pact and U.S. support for a Saudi civil nuclear power program that could potentially match Iran's. In Jerusalem, such ideas would set off alarm bells. Joe says it's not a big deal. In the event of a thaw between Saudi Arabia and Israel, the United States may provide both countries with defense guarantees and cutting-edge weaponry. He would also gain the satisfaction of marginalizing and imposing China as a result. If the Saudi regime disdains democracy and human rights, then why should the United States defend it? Biden has threatened to make the Saudi Arabian government a global pariah after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. To answer your question, normalization would be a huge victory for the president before the election, especially when coupled with the third prong of his plan, which is to advance Palestinian statehood.